The Marvel Cinematic Universe is, for the most part, an extremely kid-friendly franchise. The likes of Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Star-Lord, and Spider-Man have become iconic in mainstream pop culture circles, and that's thanks largely to the fact that children idolize them as if they were real-life superheroes. But there are some moments in the franchise that simply aren't suitable for younger eyes and ears. These are 10 Marvel movie moments that aren't for kids. And a quick warning, this video contains spoilers for movies up to and including Avengers Infinity War. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It's the best way of keeping up to date with all of Screen Rant's great new videos. Hulk smashes Blonsky. It's actually quite easy to forget that 2008's The Incredible Hulk is even part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, given that it was Edward Norton and not Mark Ruffalo in the titular role of Bruce Banner, but it is. The movie saw General Ross attempting to take down the Hulk, and in doing so he recruited Emily Blonsky, whom he equipped with a version of the same super soldier serum that gave Captain America his amazing abilities decades earlier. Tim Roth's character wasn't scared of the Hulk at all, and he confronted him outside Culver University without any fear whatsoever. In fact, after a brief altercation between the pair, Blonsky even had the audacity to say, "Is that it? Is that all you've got?" to the Hulk, which resulted in one of the most brutal scenes in the MCU. The Hulk kicked Blonsky with a massive amount of force, which saw him travel quite some distance before smashing against a tree and going completely limp. In fact, it's so brutal that when the movie is shown on television these days, the scene cuts off completely as soon as the kick connects, so the tree impact isn't shown. It's definitely not something any parent would want a child to see.
You look fantastic.
Why, thank you very much.
But that's unprofessional. What's on the docket?
You have a 9:30 dinner.
Perfect. I'll be there at 11.
Quite a spread. In his first MCU appearance back in 2008's Iron Man movie, Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark was something of a womanizing ladies' man who would bring beautiful women back to his home on a regular basis, sleep with them, and try his best to never speak to them again. One of those women was reporter Christine Everhart. Everhart grilled Stark over the weapons manufacturing activities of Stark Industries, referring to him as the Merchant of Death in the process, before becoming just another notch on his bedpost that very evening, after falling for his cheesy chat-up lines and ending up back at Stark's mansion. In Iron Man 2, she reappeared, and it resulted in a couple of lines of dialogue that definitely weren't for kids. When Justin Hammer explained that Everhart was doing a big spread on him for Vanity Fair, Pepper Potts replied that she did quite a spread on Tony the previous year. Tony's witty response was that she also wrote a story on him. This reference to Everhart being spread definitely won't be lost on adults, and while it probably went over the heads of most children, it was certainly very risky to include it in an Iron Man movie.
So, this all seems horrible.
I've seen worse.
Sorry.
Mewling quim. There was a certain moment in 2012's The Avengers that no adult could believe had slipped by the censor's attention. It came in a scene on board the S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier when Loki had been captured and placed in the transparent prison that had been built to hold the Hulk, in the event that the big green guy went rogue. Black Widow had approached him, pretending to be vulnerable, opening up to the God of Mischief, which turned out to be her very clever way of getting information from him regarding his plans for global conquest. In her seemingly most vulnerable moment, Loki snapped and told her what he was going to make Clint Barton do to her, and then he called her a, quote, mewling quim. It's one of the most offensive lines in comic book movie history, being right up there with that infamous hit girl line in the first Kick-Ass film. It's just that some people aren't too familiar with the derivation, the people responsible for rating the movie included. In Old English, mewling quim would be the same as calling somebody a whining C-bomb in modern times. The fact that it sneaked its way into a movie aimed at a young audience is actually quite unbelievable to this day.
People are gonna die, Buck. I can't let that happen.
Captain America, the Winter Soldier. On the whole, 2014's Captain America Winter Soldier just isn't very kid-friendly in general. It's certainly the least kid-friendly of all the movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe anyway, and that's why we're including the entire film on this list. The second Captain America outing is a very sophisticated political espionage thriller, and a damn good movie in general, but it simply doesn't cater to the needs of very young audiences in the same way other MCU movies do. It does resist the temptation to focus on a substantial romance plot like the first Captain America movie, but it also amps up the violence, and the movie's themes are far more complex than most comic book offerings. The plot is extremely paranoid. and it runs parallel to the real-world scandal of the NSA's PRISM program. And children, quite frankly, simply won't understand that. Cap's fundamental distrust of institutions is also a very tough theme for kids to follow. Moreover, some of the movie's combat scenes are among the most brutal in the MCU, including the climactic battles that see Captain America and Falcon going up against the Winter Soldier. And they might be a little bit much for younger children. That's when you...
Why would I put my finger on his throat?
What? A Jackson Pollock painting. Like Tony Stark before him, Chris Pratt's Peter Quill, otherwise known as Star-Lord, was introduced as something of a womanizer in 2014's Guardians of the Galaxy movie. He spoke on a number of liaisons with females from all manner of alien races, one of which was a needle-toothed, tentacle-bearing Ascavarian, for example, and it was no surprise to see him completely forgetting about the fact that the Krillorian Barit was in his ship, even though he'd clearly been with her just hours earlier. The nature and regularity of these liaisons was made very clear in that same movie, when the characters who would become his teammates were first aboard his ship. Gamora described the vehicle as being filthy, which prompted Quill to tell Rocket she has no idea. If I had a blacklight, the place would be looking like a Jackson Pollock painting. Pollock being a painter who was famous for his drip and splash style. While the line would probably go under most kids' radars, it would certainly become awkward if any children asked their parents what Quill meant by that. Because he was talking about the fact that his, let's call it his DNA, had been sprayed all over the place in there.
This is Laura.
I know all your names.
Hawkeye can't get it up. Avengers Age of Ultron saw Thor's fellow Avengers attempting to lift Mjolnir for the first time. Tony Stark tried, Rhodey tried, Bruce Banner tried and pretended to Hulk out in the process, and Captain America tried. But Clint Barton was actually the first to mock the notion of being worthy by claiming the whole thing was just a trick. When Thor replied by saying, "It's a lot more than that, my friend," the guy with the bow and arrow decided to kick things off by trying to lift it himself. As he approached the famous Warhammer, Tony Stark, in typical Tony fashion, said, "Clint, you've had a tough week. We won't hold it against you if you can't get it up." This double entendre certainly wasn't suitable for children, as Tony was actually making a joke about male impotence, something he's already done in the first Avengers movie with his performance issues line, when Loki's staff failed to control his mind. In that same Age of Ultron scene, Stark also casually referred to prima nocta, which was a supposed legal right in medieval Europe and elsewhere, allowing feudal lords to have sexual relations with subordinate women. That's also a line that's definitely not for kids.
Didn't realize you were waiting.
I would have joined you, but it didn't seem like the right time.
Hide the zucchini. Staying with Avengers Age of Ultron, the second MCU offering involving Earth's mightiest heroes came with a revelation that Bruce Banner and Natasha Romanoff, the Hulk and Black Widow, were romantically involved with one another. The internet responded exactly how you'd expect the internet to respond these days, with some pretty disturbing thoughts and images relating to the logistics of the whole thing if the Hulk was fully transformed, but Tony Stark stooped to that level in the movie itself as well. During the final battle in Sokovia, when the Avengers were trying to prevent Ultron from creating an extinction-level event, while fending off thousands of his drones, Black Widow had commandeered a truck to mow down the army of metal men. Given that Stark wasn't aware of her whereabouts at that point, he told her via his suit's comms device that she and Banner better not be playing hide the zucchini. A zucchini is, of course, a large green vegetable that is somewhat phallic in shape. The idea of hiding it is quite disturbing, to say the least. Suffice it to say, the line wasn't exactly very kid-friendly, but given what we already know about Tony Stark's sense of humor, it was hardly surprising.
Nothing. You're the Spider-Man.
Ned's excuse. At the end of Spider-Man Homecoming, Peter Parker attended the very dance that's referred to in the movie's title. However, during the dance, he realized that Adrian Toomes, the Vulture, was planning on hijacking a DODC plane that was transporting weapons from the Avengers Tower to the team's new headquarters in upstate New York. As a result, he donned his old homemade Spider-Man suit and hurried off to prevent Toomes from carrying out his plan. He was ambushed by Herman Schultz, who was using the Shocker gear, but he defeated him with the help of his best friend Ned Leeds. Ned then became his man in the chair for the subsequent fight against Toomes, providing him with an extra pair of eyes on his mission by using a number of school computers. When Ned was interrupted by a member of staff, he had to think fast about why he was there, so he told the lady he was looking at porn. While there wasn't actually any adult material in the scene, because let's be honest, that would have been really weird, the fact that adult material was referred to wasn't exactly very kid-friendly, which was still odd, considering the movie was largely aimed at a young audience.
Turn off the Tesseract or I'll destroy it.
You can't. There is no stopping it. There is only the war.
Loki's death. A number of characters have died now in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, not least the countless characters who disappeared at the end of Avengers Infinity War when Thanos snapped his fingers. But at least we're pretty sure those guys will all return. Tom Hiddleston's Loki, however, might not be so lucky, as his death didn't come with the snap. It literally came at the hands of Thanos, and it was brutal as hell. We've seen Phil Coulson stabbed, Quicksilver shot, and Yondu suffocating in space, but Loki's demise reached new disturbing levels. The God of Mischief was choked to death by the Mad Titan in the opening scenes of Avengers Infinity War, in what might have been the darkest and most traumatizing scene in the MCU so far. His death was preceded by the eerie sight of dozens of dead Asgardians laying on the floor of the Statesman, the creepy tones of Ebony Maw hyping Thanos up, the savage beating received by the Hulk, and the death of Idris Elba's Heimdall, which made it even worse. However, the death itself was really not something children would have liked seeing, especially those who were fans of the character, and it really was quite horrible.
You're her hero, Scott. Just be the person that she already thinks you are.
65. Strictly speaking, this Marvel movie moment hasn't actually happened yet, as there's still a few weeks before Ant-Man and The Wasp is released. It's a scene we've been shown, however, so we're happy to include it right here. The scene in question comes from one of the movie's trailers, when Paul Rudd's Scott Lang is talking to Lawrence Fishburne's Bill Foster, an old friend of Michael Douglas's Hank Pym, who was once his assistant in Project Goliath. In the comics, Bill Foster is a superhero who's gone by the names Giant Man, Goliath, and Black Goliath, all of whom were characters who could grow really, really large. And it seems that was once the case in the MCU. With that in mind, the conversation between Foster and Lang, who of course can also grow in size in the live-action franchise, was about who grew the tallest. Foster said his record was 21 feet, to which Lang smugly replied that his record is 65 feet. And Evangeline Lilly's Hope Van Dyne appears to find the whole thing rather pathetic. The conversation was, of course, extremely reminiscent of that rather typical real-life discussing about manhood sizes, which definitely makes the conversation unsuitable for kids. And that's the end of our video. Did you enjoy it? Can you think of any Marvel movie moments that really weren't for kids? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Screen Rant for more great videos just like this one. Bye for now.